everyone, welcome back to The Learning Gardener. If you haven't been here before, my name is Pip and we are going to be doing lots of odd jobs today that need to get done if the dogs will allow it. And the first one we're going to start with is replanting these onion seedlings. I did plant them a while ago, but I planted them a bit prematurely and they mostly died. Rafi, come on, off. Okay, let's take this cone of shame off, hey? We had enough of these? You've been a very good boy. There you go. Is that better? I know you're happy to have the cone off, I know. Oh good, you're both here walking in the garden bed. You guys know that I recently told someone it's not that common that you get into the garden beds, and now you're making me look like a liar. I know. And it's lucky all the onions in there are already dead pretty much. Yep, okay. So once they decide to get out of the garden bed, then what we are going to do is start off by replacing the onion seedlings that were in here that died because I planted them prematurely. And hopefully this time they'll be successful because I love homegrown onions. They're really tasty. And now she's digging. So whatever onions hadn't died just did. So yeah, okay. So we're starting again here. I think we've got maybe 2 that probably just didn't survive what just happened then. But anyway, the chaos level of today is unparalleled. Rafi, off. I mean, I know get off. I know he's just got the cone off, but also Partridge is sick. So Partridge Betty, one of the chickens, yesterday sort of was looking like a drunk soldier a little bit, and I noticed she was resting head down slightly the day before. And so then I thought maybe she had crop impaction. So I isolated her after I saw her do this like head bobble thing. And yeah, so then it turned out this morning she didn't have an impacted crop. Or, well, she's now got wry neck, and that might have been caused by the fact that she was a little bit nutritionally in a deficit beforehand, because we still have pullets that aren't laying, so can't give full pullet feed, although I'm going to give them a little bit more. But then having the fasting overnight to see if her crop was compacted has then caused a wry neck, and it's just a whole situation. So we've got a chicken with wry neck, we've got a dog who's just got out of the cone of shame, and oh yeah, I burnt myself with hot oil, poured it all down my legs last night, and you are still in the garden bed, Bertha. So yeah, we will try and get some gardening done before I lose my mind, okay? So it's lucky that gardening is like mental health support for me, because right now you are challenging my mental health, Rafi. So anyway, before we went on that slight tangent of me losing my marbles, collecting Birdie from the side where she was yelling at the neighbour's dog, and Rafa jumping into the garden bed for the 65th millionth time, yeah, we're planting onions and doing odd jobs, and the mic wasn't working, and all the things are happening today, so I'm frazzled. But I'm trying not to add too much slow release fertilizer here, even though the onions will probably love it. What I want to try and do is start gradually focusing, just if I'm using fertilizer, on something like blood and bone and less on the synthetic stuff. Now that I've got the chickens, although one is in peril, I want to try and use them to help me create more compost and therefore be able to have a more natural garden bed and just sort of rebuild the soil literally from the ground up, and try and make it as healthy as possible. So, oh God, it's really not my day. I'm just going to start by getting these onions in the ground, and then given the dog's level of interest in this garden bed today, I might pop the climbing structure back on so they can't climb immediately back in here. And then we're going to get on to some other jobs because there's about 50 million other jobs I've got to do. And there's oil all over the carpet inside from last night's oil spillage on my legs. You know, all good over here. I'm fine. Sort of. Okay. So I just pulled the cover off and I gave the sacrificed leaves to the chickens, which they're very happy about. Partridge showed very little interest in it, but she's laid an egg. So she's obviously feeling a little bit better. She's no longer doing this massive head maneuver and she doesn't look as drunk as she did before. And her crop feels great, which is fantastic. So hopefully whatever was causing her wry neck, which I think was just a nutritional deficiency, with all my chicken experience, I've made this judgment call. Hopefully we've caught it really early and therefore been able to wind it back quite quickly. So maybe she can even be back with her buddies tomorrow, which I think would make her a hell of a lot happier. So what I've done through here though is I've accidentally dropped a significant amount of blood and bone in the corner, and then I have spread it as best I can through the rest of the bed. But it should be good for the brassicas to get another fat juicy feed of fertilizer. And sorry about the audio and the mic and the wind and everything. If it's terrible I might have to go over it later with the mic. But hopefully that extra feed of blood and bone will be really good for the brassicas because they're very hungry plants usually, and I am horrendous at giving things subsequent feeds. They get a feed when they get planted and then they're on their own. So I'm just going to go through the garden and try and get rid of the rest of these onion seedlings around the bases of the collies, and it would have been excellent if I had done this when the cauliflowers were smaller, therefore allowing the onions more sunlight. But never thought I'd say this. We're running low on bed space, so they gotta go where they gotta go. And some of the reason we're running low on bed space is because we've got a few beds that need a pretty decent makeover, and physically I cannot do it at the moment. So it just has to wait. And there's going to be an awful lot of massive jobs for me to do hopefully next week. Should be tiring, but should also be satisfying to finally get some of those things wrapped up. Although actually, I think it's supposed to rain all of next week. Oh well, we get to it when we get to it. This year's planting strategy actually looks significantly different to last year, and it's not really because I sat and thought about what I did and decided I'd done it all wrong and to do it differently this year. Essentially, it comes down to I really liked homegrown garlic, and I didn't get any broccoli last year, and I wanted to make sure that that was not the same story this year, and I wanted heaps more garlic, and so I prioritized those two crops almost to the detriment of anything else. Garlic generally doesn't like to be planted with any competition, so because I bought so much of it, ended up with, what have we got, 5 beds of just garlic. Not the same size bed as this one, but probably the equivalent of at least 2 of these huge beds. And so I just planted the garlic in those beds by themselves, and then because I'd basically planted no other seedlings, I only had broccoli, so then they all got planted together. So whereas previously I think we could call my method inspired by the square foot method, but a lot more chaotic than the square foot method, where you sort of interplant a whole range of plants together. You're sort of looking at companion planting a little bit, and you're looking at trying to maximize what you get from the square footage of the garden bed. This year, it's plant all the broccoli and all the garlic, and then try and work out where anything else goes after that. And to be honest, I quite like the look of a full brassica bed and a full garlic bed and all of that sort of stuff. And my video from summer popped back up onto my computers because I'm in the process of switching computers over, which is, being super fun. And I forgot how luscious and amazing it looked in summer. That's not how I remember it being at all. So I do think once these sort of main food crops like the garlic and the onions come out, I'm definitely going back to my chaos interplanting methods and making sure that there is plenty of flowers interspersed with everything. And yesterday I went around and dumped a whole bunch of poppy seeds in a lot of the beds, so hopefully we can have beautiful colour display at some point. But this week we've got windstorms and a full week of rain, so we got the majority of the onions planted, which is great, but the rest will have to wait till there is somewhere to put them, which basically means waiting till I can lift, because I've got to clean out the garden beds. So I'm just going to do a couple more jobs to progressively tidy up the garden. These are spent, oh gosh, I don't know why I try and remember every time. I'm going to say Globe Amaranth, but they were a beautiful fuchsia colour, and they were absolutely gorgeous. We might come along the plant tag in the process of taking these out, but they are well and truly spent now. So they just are looking a bit raggedy, and we don't want to have them just sort of sitting here looking revolting when we could have a beautiful cleaned out sort of side garden bed under these arches, because we've got the straw flowers are about to bloom on some of them, but on some of them they have the most beautiful dark purple flowers, which is absolutely gorgeous. And then underneath we've got a couple of bunny's tails, which I love, which have self-seeded from previous seasons, and we've also got some apricot status, which will bloom in spring. So in the meantime, we'll get all these cleared out, and at least it'll be then ready for some beautiful spring colour. And maybe if we find some space and some seedlings, we can sneak a few other things in here down the track. last job we're going to be doing for today is to sow some seeds. We need to get our seeds sown. Not because we have empty spaces in the garden bed, as we discovered earlier, but because we are 4 weeks away from spring and I don't want to get behind. And these winter sowing method plastic bottles are a perfect way to get ahead and stay ahead. Last time we used these was about 8 weeks ago. To be honest, didn't even bother hosing them out. I've just put more seedling mix in and moistened the soil. Now, the purpose of moistening the soil is obviously it's great for the seeds and it helps germination. But when the soil is moist in these plastic containers, what you will get is some condensation coming up on the inside of the plastic bottle, and then that will run back down in the plastic bottle and keep the soil moist so the seedlings don't dry out to the same effect. Whether that holds true in summer remains to be seen, but for right now it is perfect and it protects them from really significant fluctuations in temperature, which we've started to have. And as you can tell, we're having quite a lot of wind, which will happen more and more as we transition into spring. We tend to get a lot of wind as we go into spring, and tomorrow we're expecting a windstorm. So once these are all planted up, they will stay there. The other thing I'm making sure I am doing today, because I didn't do it last time and never got to it and therefore never knew what anything was I have got my garden marker, which is like a permanent marker that's designed to cope with UV light. And I'm going to mark the bottles as I go, because last time the, what was it called? Tape that I put on basically blew off in the first windstorm. So we're going to get these planted up. They basically have a flip top head created. They've got some holes in the bottom for drainage. I'm going to leave the lid off, except as I said, because we're expecting storms this week, I'm going to leave these over here so they don't drown. But otherwise I'm not concerned about drainage or anything like that, because they do have the holes in the bottom so they can drain out. And then once everything's been sown, then I will close the flip top head and tape it up with some clear tape. So these first two I put a chicken feed seed in just to see how it goes. I have a garden bed that has some questionable soil, so I'm just growing chicken food and flowers in it for the time being to see how the soil goes. So it's already got things like silver beets and stuff like that, and this I just found at the store has like bok choy, catgrass, wheat, buckwheat, plantain, sunflower seeds, purslane, clover. So I mean, you're not going to get a huge amount of germination from just this tiny amount, but it'll be interesting to see if we can sort of get that going and get some stagger feed going for the chickens. We did check on Partridge before, and she is looking better and better as the day goes on. She's eaten some grubs, but her left foot is still kind of, it's like she's lifting it up higher so she doesn't trip over her fingers. So there's obviously some sort of neurological effect that comes with wry neck, but she is looking better. I haven't seen any of the head movement. She's looking perkier. She got accosted by Betty Boo over grubs, but you know, what else is new? So the main things we're going to be focusing on getting planted are particularly green feast peas, which are a shelling pea, and I want to get some more sweet peas, sugar snap peas, planted, because we were about to get a massive harvest of sugar snap peas, and then the wind smashed those plants and they're looking so rubbish. I'm going to have to take them all out. And the peas that we planted last time in these containers that did really, really well and were beyond ready to be planted out in 5 weeks, they're not that big yet. They're not getting a lot of sun and our temperatures are pretty cool, so they have slowed down. They're growing outside of the bottle, so they're not producing anything yet. And we go through a lot of sugar snap peas between myself and my best friend's family, so we need more. And we learnt that last year, and so I was planning on planting more, and I have failed dismally at that. So right now I'm going to get that done, kill that mosquito, and get these jobs finished for today, because there's a lot of jobs I've got to do inside. got everything planted up. Not everything that I wanted, but all the bottles are full. So I think I'll ask my parents and my brother to start collecting their bottles again so that I can get more spring stuff going much earlier than normal. So we ended up planting 2 lots of chicken feed, 2 lots of green feast peas, 2 lots of sugar snap Cascadia peas, spinach that's a Matador variety, some French marigolds, spaghetti squash, watermelon sugar baby, because I want to get the watermelon going really early so that when we get to the super hot weather we've got something for me and for the chickens. We also planted some Brussels sprouts, which I loathe with a violent fiery passion. I hate cabbage, it's disgusting. Blech. But I use Brussels sprouts as an aphid trap, and now that we have chickens, if we have an aphid trapping brassica, that will just get covered in aphids and then go in and feed the chooks. And we planted some beefsteak tomatoes. The beefsteak tomatoes should be fine to germinate because all of the various tomato types that we planted last season dropped seed in the garden beds, and we've been getting tomato seedlings popping up everywhere, but a lot of them don't look healthy because it's been so cold and they've been growing through winter. So I've been pulling them, so hopefully these ones will give us an early start to tomato season with some healthy tomatoes. So all I'm going to do now is use my clear sticky tape to seal up the bottles, and then we are all done with our garden jobs for today, and it's on to the inside disaster to deal with that today. But I hope you guys have enjoyed hanging out with us here on The Learning Gardener, and I'm sorry it was a bit chaotic, but that is our life at the moment. So I wish there was something I could do about that to make it less chaotic, but that's just where we're at. Anyway, thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.